I was just watching them on Fox News with Congress. Congress, this is also using subject. I watch at Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN because I'm also aware recorded. There's as their sources is actually recorded. They've been pretending others recorded offensively, attaching little kids and their family members to fake locations, fake ties to others, fake natures of ties to others since founding, and with uses of exceptions that are differentially worse and not. Additionally, because of the roles, same problem everywhere the species body is at all locations slash s, and it propagated before our founders were born and as modern countries A through Z. Them as individuals above locations, areas, and states, self-valued roles, having countered and countering the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and of the worst uses of criminal insidiousness natures of positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures, simultaneously as collusions where the identity theft slash fraud slash slander method was sickly distinctly, but thank God, sickly non distinctly from against our founders, Native Americans, were semi our founders, are semi our founders. Still, no, president slash chief, our founders who had to counter extort the other founders, not just as Native Americans, not just as James Madison and George Washington, who asked us to address, who communicated for us to address their lies, forced, because a breaching method was sentencing everyone, because it locked everyone down through instances treatments at formal locations referred to as Congress has been used remotely to still in check. It employed to be blamed on other things, others or selves, and or selves. The real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And worse, additionally, because worse additional uses of ground were juxtaposed with that originally and still. Weathersfield campus is individually grouped and together. They are used inter and intra that. Also intercities through time. This is a method that is affected, knew it would affect its method since semi-ancient times. It would affect the phenomena of semi-ancient countries and now modern countries' names. Uses of the identity of volume science as individuals grouped and together, group different slash s, and together, species voicing slash s. And we are not the only species with these three distinct volume sciences as one slash three slash five. As cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall are three identities of relationship to itself, the identity of the hyper-simultaneous. Being an individual or observing an individual and knowing that individual is a distinct identity of volume, science. It's a distinct identity of simultaneous nature. It's a distinct one as the species volume at the same time, where we are value as nature slash nature as value per its system, the hyper-simultaneous, which is a distinct identity of relativity to positive and negative, as every identity is is discernibly conjunctive to positive and negative simultaneously. Nature demonstrates that its complete identity, even though we are the most finite part, even altogether, of the identity of space slash existence. We know scientifically we could refer to this as the identity of the hyper-simultaneous. Present where how also not only are our group differences like male female with our volume science slash s, individual group difference slash s, and species voicing slash s for difference has difference. But now again through and as names, through a filter from semi-ancient times, in defenses of their logic of premises treatments of fact treatment nature qualities, aspects in nature that can't defend itself, and afford short words with uses of convictions properly. That is proper thing to convey. It is easier to discern. It is better to discern. For example, the difference between the cell nucleus, cell body, and cell wall slash S. No. Those are three distinct identities of relationship to itself. The hyper-simultaneous is inseparable from all identities of value progression, and that is increasingly valued. Its identity of relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that has relativity to a special difference too, where how already to an extent it is making more positive of its identity through temporary identities, only value to make more of its own as our simultaneous value slash hyper-simultaneous as three values. Part of the reason we are an active quality of diffusion here, we have no control over but one way. See, the overt criminal enterprises and killers, the private criminal enterprises, and the three branches of government, only three branches of government, tons of people, tons of names. Where and how to, that original identity theft slash fraud slash slander method against George Washington and against James Madison is in our way, and through our own, with other pretended, so that worse than just simultaneously being and having been obfuscated. And where it's being obfuscated, that's the roles increasingly valuing having been obfuscated. One of the ways they got away with this in modern countries is how the individual leaders and or the individuals prevent each other from being the quality of fact treatment nature, from being debate nature. In other words, there are needs to use our country's name, good and bad. People are blaming on other people were invested, blaming on other things, others ourselves, with the breaching method caused, with the design of suburbs before our founders were born, with slavery entrenched sickly distinctly north and south, through other countries individually grouped in them and together themselves, already having had their education, the history of education, changed and replaced. And that's self-valued by themselves through the defenses of themselves, including and especially where we are, especially differentially where we are, quality as fact treatment nature. This is where evolution science came from. before the sciences became criminally foreign influence. This is where the republic for which we stand come from. It has been abridged since semi-ancient times. Prepare our minds. Mandated law was prevented at all locations /s, also through the identities of mandated law. This is one of the things that slavery was about, no matter who it was made up by, even if there's some reason our founders might have had to make it up. The real ones, the ones who had to counter extort the other founders. And see the sense and sensibilities of the generation of those other founders and of our founders. They stayed self-valued roles with the glorifications of themselves, effectively used by the breaching method used to measure and maintain from semi-ancient times. Who was gonna be honest where, for example, honesty is brought up. Where the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. The breaching method employed them blamed on other things, others, or selves. This is one of the things it employed slavery and prejudice for, while simultaneously to measure and maintain. Defenses of logic with that, self-valuing, criminally foreign influence possessions of the uses of the science's names and of the names representing them. Oh, this is a good person, that's a bad, and the array and that difference. Nature teaches us about difference distinctly from the voices that only heard science is abridged. Premises treatments, tactically, criminally foreign influence, while simultaneously tactically delusions wrought. While simultaneously all experts on ratiocination / pseudo-ratiocination juxtapose distinct natures of organized crime and uses of locations with types of experts against types of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, still in the furtherance of them the most, differentially, and with all exception nature, recorded consciously being and having been used by them to blame other things, others, or selves. And part of the way they get away with that, how they left out, you leave out where our founders were left tortured and enslaved, fact cheating nature, so worse, and forced to pretend other, because that's what the summary of the laws were. Physics, it makes summaries of measurements. With physics and the extent of metaphysics, they have tactically delusions wrought, simultaneously criminally foreign influenced. Qualities of fact-shaping nature, aspects of fact-shaping nature. For example, defenses of what they call debate and free speech. One of the things commonly that with the breaching method, see, with all this, forgiveness is not to give up. It's not to leave out the breaching method itself, and to have it claimed as a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise. I'm not a lawyer. Together, we're going to bring the ACE Act, Anti-Hyper-Archetypal Criminal Enterprise Act. Together, we're going to use the hyper-evidential. Judging freedom has been lied to by the intelligence community. The Romulus / Snowy, the Romulus slash snowy is programming as hyperintelligence grounding, as a hyperintelligence grounding program. And more. Because the simultaneous, its identity of relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that is hyper equality and demonstration of the identity of hyper relativity, not just relativity. What is actually recorded are criminally foreign influence uses and or differentially of those tactical delusions. Noted. I'm not a doctor too. There have been needs to delineate the delusions from the criminally foreign influence factory nature of the qualities of the logic experts. These are also the roles with those identity ground locations. Still, since founding, with their worst patients and criminals, kept needing to hide the same sequence shift, finite, active, progressive lies with them, roles with predicate acts, with federal evidences, crimes, evidence self-value by the opinions, convictions, and natures and theories of people on all sides of criminal and of civil cases, including victims advocates, and people associated with the gathering of juries, the prosecutors' family members themselves, the judges. Since I was a kid, there are connected uses of this. After people graduate, they have to do little sequence shifts to have people record things, but they have those sequence shifts self-value. There are uses of this where there are the vertical and horizontal confessions used by a breaching method distinctly by, this is also when they're pretending other at the same time. Our founders left us to demonstrate how all sides in criminal and civil cases, people associated with gathering juries, how they were criminally foreign influence, evidence reception, data reception, identity reception natures, how they were fact treatment nature slaves, using any and every excuse they could to pretend other, because there's reliance upon that. They have doctors who also have badges involved with names with the branches of government individually grouped and together. They are kept with their worst patients and criminals and family members, with their doctors too, running in, speaking fake things, pretend people had conversations, and they're active because they need to pretend things in the past. They've been getting away with such because of how they've been pretending integrity means what it does, and pretending the appearance of justice means what it doesn't. Per their roles with all the nations in the news, on off the campuses. Trinity College and CCSU has a whole bunch of people involved with predicate acts on my street, with people with wire crimes with Wethersfield Police, State Police, Whiting Forensics when I was a kid, and now a whole bunch of people on off the state judicial branch offices involved with all sides in cases and with manipulations of the jury. So they switch names into branch while they're stacking fake things. So vaccines, you know that there's a sick people that would use time of a court where they can force people to go, and how much damage you could do that with that, even if no one knows about it, especially differentially. And then they speak fake things into the records, fake motivations. They bring how they have kids involved because there are foreign names involved. Because since they were kids, this is how they do this. To keep out this trinity in its greater one. It is one identity of relation to itself, and only increasing value of that where it is not juxtaposed with matter. is distinctly while it is. But part of itself, that's why the active part and value of our contemplation, of our contemplation goes with how the only an individual can defend the finite. Only an individual can defend and use simultaneous properly. Jim Crow laws have been blamed on other things, others ourselves, leaving out the three distinct natures of criminal insidiousness involved with the slavery of our founders, Native Americans, and everyone else with the black/white thing. Sickly distinctly to hide how sickly non-distinctly. And while to have all the exceptions, exception nature, then demonstration of other, measured and maintained, self-value by the victims of that, not realizing all that and what it causes, was kept needing to hide, and is kept needing to hide the same fact nature possessions and uses of them against themselves and others, while others pretended at all locations /s as the actually recorded uses of them. So there is hyper-intelligence that is greater than, is more finite than intelligence, has been defined. They have lawyers also offensively used to plant fake motivations, fake evidences. They don't just legitimately have roles with their clients. They have roles with the networks. WFSB has attached me to fake conversations. It has roles with the people involved with Russians, Saudi Arabia. They're coaching to roles with them with names on my street with predicate acts when I was a kid tied to them. And they will have that because they want to pretend that it's personal against them. They brought this up. Weathersfield Police did this over the phone too. They have a name Sullivan, and they keep making more names with the McGee. They have multiple police reports where they attach confessions to them. They fabricated police reports and switched names and confessed that they use more than three different officers who use the name McGee with state police, Weathersfield Police, their families, and former director of FBI Robert Luskin, his co-defendants. Also involved wire crimes with Weathersfield Police, attaching little kids to fake conversations with police when they were kids and then as adults. I never had communications with Paul Zano at Central Connecticut State University or Trinity College. Real quick, they influenced 2 instances to have his picture taken near me. They did this when I was first walking into the high school. Never saw him at high school. Never had anything to do with him in grammar school. They tried to make a fake exception. And they were, in other words, there were adults and kids that were planting evidences, criminally foreign influence uses of the databases to hide life progressions as their roles with various natures of federal criminals when I was a kid before they got caught pretending passions and emotions with interbranch kids. The exceptions tied to them. Whole bunch of people on off the state of Connecticut corrections offices, also with the names on off the state judicial branch offices and the local in conjunctions to it, involved with and as ones with all sides of criminal and civil cases, victims and victims advocates, planting sequence shifts, natures of identity, theft, fraud, slanders instances. It is hyper evidential where and how this has been left out, how criminal foreign influences, how could that phrase be left out? That values people with weapons pointing at each other because it's an excuse to hide fake integrity of logic, fake integrity of law voicing. Law is 3 volumes too. So in demonstration of this, law as physics, as nature. See criminal insidiousness. See how people pretending that there's debate, people pretending about the motions and the motivations of others who have been preventing writing. Since I was a kid, this is worse than extortion. They're lying about their motives too, because these are people increasingly attaching me off campuses to fake things with people that were influenced to put fake communications with me, fake natures of communications with me, and increasingly sequence shifts where they're having teachers and people associated with schools pretending in fake conversations with kids, also from off of it. Also, so they could keep everyone fighting and using each other's names and lying about motivations with the interbranch too. All the exceptions they bring up, they bring up their family members. The Leahy family pretended through the mail too that they had conversations with me. A whole bunch of people from Hartford Hospital have roles with the Violet family and with military police families, all along routes 175, also on off campuses, even medical and fire and military, criminally foreign influence, planting fake evidence as roles, speaking things tied to that, pretending it's legitimate rights to lie, for states pretending they're against leaking things while they demonstrate criminally foreign influence, fake motivations too. They're people saying things about each other and their descriptions of it, motivations. They're keeping this only seen. They're keeping the motivations why they um we want program, we want what is it called? Ratings. All those systems are measure and maintain tools. They're affronts to mandated law. Short words proper, let alone their protraction. The identity of the hyper of relativity is recorded, where and how there are these three distinct identities of simultaneous, being an individual, group difference slash S, and species volume difference at the same time. And slash S because the other species also have the identity of the simultaneous, hyper simultaneous per science that we agree on. We don't have to agree on the name. But grouped, you have to come to an agreement or not. And simultaneously, you have to agree to be about the freedom of religion of others or not. Now, the people who pretend they're against it because the people attacked us, they have roles with it. They have KKK themed, black themed, Saudi themed, religious themed, family members, everyone. The intelligence community spreads lies with the overt criminal enterprises and private ones, sequence shifts. They are used remotely in defenses of their identities and names where they can't defend that and value short words proper because criminal foreign influences, remote uses of that are relative even before their conception. The branch of the government had manifest roles with Jim Crow laws, leaving out the criminal foreign influences, remote uses of the colonies and of the states, individually grouped in together. Their fact-sheeping nature sick. You know what kind of things are private and all sides of cases, civil and criminal, our countries had roles with while the world wars were going on. and they pretended, how easy it is to pretend passions and emotions against the name of others, like Hitler. Now, we have to be led by the hyper invisibles, but still discernible. Oh, there's someone doing this, so we go after it. It means this. This thing sets up set up all exceptions. So we have to come down to what people are actually using as the premises treatments. So WFSB and names next to them, and Fox Connecticut News and names next to them. They have wire crimes with police departments and their families since they were kids. They use methods, you know. You have to follow mandated law on time. We know our branch have roles with 16. When they have the North and the South, when they had them fight, our founders, what they left us to communicate was about how the North and South both had roles with slavery. Both were forced to fight against it by our founders, who only had means to an extent. to force that, because even from the beginning, the laws were so crazy against everyone that they only had to quickly counter extort people from the 13 locations. And then they knew that there were going to be, in other words, roles with slavery, north and south, all what means all kinds of roles with all kinds of things, and or trying to compare them. Complete possession of the human fact, treatment nature, syntax nature, functions, system measured and maintained, tactical ulterior, self-value, tactical ulterior by others than the one that is the complete hyper possession of our fact, treatment nature. That is also positive to itself, not as criminal insidiousness nature or positive. This sickly distinctly measures the individual as the presidents and the individual as individuals, not allowed free speech and pretending other, and or pretending to be against it but in the collusion with it. Mandated law and logic proper was prevented freedom and is prevented freedom. And that's leverage. There's speculation. That's self-value. That's used remotely too. So I don't know the Perón family that made exception years ago. Were influenced with others with medical locations and religious locations. Involved also with interbranch locations with child offenders. Also, how juxtaposed natures of child abuse is at the same time because of their roles with locations and families that are only allowed to be the counters to it, including even with the nurses, the military, and in military and in the policing of the campuses, including fire and medical, including the World Trade Center has roles with all investigators, and vetting of logic, originally and still maintained, used effectively to measure and maintain who's not going to be sick that way while pretending other. Collusions with that possession too, sickly distinctly against our directors of the agencies from the people that come into them. For example, there's a grandfather of I never met him, of Eric Jensen, and his father, and I don't know other family members of his, but he's one of the ones involved with the Wethersfield police names and locations. Also with Newington police families, with Wethersfield police wire crimes, federal evidences crimes. Also with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, people all along Route 175 from Wethersfield to Central Connecticut State University, and next to the spots where George Washington had to come counter extort. People involved with that slavery method, sickly distinctly against themselves and everyone else in the North and in the South, where slavery was forced left by that. Our founders asked us to explain how they were sickly distinctly tortured and enslaved, fact, treatment, nature, from everyone else. And that shows the simultaneous. And the hyper-simultaneous is also distinctly, non-distinctly, and hyper-simultaneously affronted upon here, vaccines. So many had conversations with and ties to a Christopher Walters and to a Ray Clough and to a Eric Oliveri and to a Paul Zano and to their family members and their extended family members, also having been roles on and off campuses with predicate acts, identity thefts, and frauds, as roles with all sides in criminal and civil cases relative in the World Trade Center attack involved. Now, these are also people with intelligence community roles with Johnson and Wales in Rhode Island, and people with the name Luigi, who also has roles with the Saudi attackers, with the intelligence community and the military, with the foreign and domestic, where they share roles with psychiatry. Now, no, if I said to you, jump off a thing into water, and some people might do it and have, oh, well, I'm fun. Some, where people do that, you're going to think about it. Some people aren't going to think about it. Yeah, I mean, some are saying, "No, I didn't think about it," because they know they don't want to do it. But some people, even though they know they want to do it, they thought about it. That's why they don't want to do it. Now, I never told anyone, there was not even a miscommunication. Just know that I wanted to commit suicide. I wanted to note that because that's one of the things that, relative to them, a whole bunch of people with the medical locations have been fabricating things into databases, including Hartford Hospital, and it has the roles with the World Trade Center. It has something to do with their roles with mayors and with those spots original to where George Washington had to counter extort the roles with slavery in Wethersfield, Connecticut, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War against England, only one part of the possession of the slavery individually grouped together of the colonies. More than 13, they made a unity where there was none. They made an independence where there were none. But both the independence and the unity and the difference of that was employed self-valued by syntax rules and with formal locations so long, measured and maintained from other uses of location juxtaposed. So when that caused more negative value nature progressions, action natures, criminal insidiousness natures, and positive treatments at the same time, identity treatments, before names, bad things cause, oh, that's corruption, that's economic treatments that leave out the breaching method. That leave out how obviously the cities were designed, the suburbs were designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and to simultaneously employ the only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures, increasingly collusions with criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and natures, and therefore names uses and no sense and sensibilities, Jane Austen's phrase, as criminal insidiousness natures at all locations, as uses of logic and nature that can't defend themselves and afford nature's use of things like a special difference. So, for example, Judge Napolitano, there are fake things in databases that a programming could list, means to discern uses of also. They've been using interbranch databases as at the same time they've been using the news, has been using the right to life with retired and standing interbranch. Only three, and the exceptions tied to them. A whole bunch of people tied to the leaderships of prisons and people that train them, judges and their family members, prosecutors and their family members, foreign and domestic military, on and off Central Connecticut State University, roles with names on all sides of it, with sequence shifts. Then pretending other, because they're investigating, the intelligence community had themselves recorded, pretending to legitimately be using and recording information when they know the people were communicated to others already. CNN implied that there was a male and female named Bobby, consciously. Maybe they didn't. I mean, it's recorded that anyway, They have a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and a whole bunch of people named Demoro and tied to them, and with and officer. There's an officer, Jerry Miller, who brought up the name Jerry Kerr. There were also people on Central Connecticut State University, Heather Hansen, and others who were in a sexual circle with one of the Joe DeMoros involved, with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and with places along the Brooklyn Turnpike. That the land behind where Lowe's is now, that shopping center has something to do with people criminally foreign influence with the military, foreign and domestic, and the attacking nations. And the names involved that I never saw on campus, they tried to pretend fake illusions after, including having a Paul Zano and a Luigi, who I never had words with Luigi either. And there was fake exceptions real quick with the Paul Zano after they graduated. And his roles in my neighborhood. I never saw Paul Zano and those people on my street the entire time I lived here, and with their ties to the names involved with the Wethersfield Police, with wire crimes, and Hartford Police, with wire crimes since they were kids, has roles with military police, switching names, switching sequences, and other police departments, Newington and Rocky Hill police families, Hartford. They bring up such, and then, oh well, look, he was saying something about our families. They're pretending they're legitimate evidences. They have readings of statutes with ties to a police chief, Cintron, and his lawyer, involved also with a Robert Chevrolet, who's the lawyer of Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants. Robert Luskin is the former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act. Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College has a whole bunch of people involved with Russians and with other countries. And like Saudi Arabia, they forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to roles with sequence shifts, federal evidences crimes, database crimes, remote uses of investigators, while pretending other too, also used remotely for even worse. Use of all locations /S. It's something to do with their roles with Route 3, names all along Route 3 and conjunctions to it. It's all spots, all along roads and routes, corners of streets used, where we are fact sheet in nature. So there are means to make lists and arrays and to discern defenses of legal treatments of issues relevant to remote uses of subject treatments, for example, where and how negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures were employed originally and still to blame other things other than themselves and measure anyone using short words other to keep them from protracting. Now they get away with this by sensing who's going to use what's smart and wise at the same time. What's the nature of America proper, with the Constitution unabridged, proper use of our names when we're kids. And they have to hide that by pretending other. This already knew that, and have to have our own doing that in every country, everywhere the species body is. Uses of names that are fake, punk treatments. Then you go before interbranch locations. They're pretending passion, because we're against drugs. These are the people in the furtherance of the different types of arrays of drugs with their whole families, attaching kids to fake ties to drugs, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to them, with the names next to the campuses too. That's how long this has been. All investigations, investigators, and vetting of that has been used remotely, measured, and maintained. New York City was built. The modern cities were built to measure and maintain what nature of leadership, of human integrity, was going to do damage control, let alone admit it. Anyone admits it, they're going to get us right through our own, pretending everything's legitimate. Our founders left us to communicate about how that we were forced to entertain identities of industries' names, names as jobs names, as value systems, abridged, tactical ulterior from that one capable of having appreciated even nature, how nature uses things like equality. How this is one of the things we are distinctly as a species volume, where we make humanity voicing /s, for example. It's invisible but still discernible. Presence is here, just like the presence of the grammatical terms, such as the subject and as the verb and or the predicate. We discern the predicate distinctly from the verb because we are discerning identity's identity of relationship to itself and the only increasing value of that, which is because we are discerning its identity of relativity to the hyper-relativity. That's a distinct identity of hyper-simultaneous, is what we can agree about. If someone wants to disagree that and how it is significance, how we are individual grouped difference /s and species body difference /s, but also the other species are manifest with these demonstrations and with female. They have rules with blaming other things, others, ourselves through our science's names because they have rules with use of all locations, reliant upon logic like that. They made Americans think they have to pay for things that in other words, we don't even, not only do we not need them, they are in the way. Defenses of them that are in fact human natures also in the way. Natures like, for example, pretending that passions and emotions, but only to prevent writing unless it's involved with sequence shifts. Since founding, there have been fact human nature-oriented predicate acts methods that our branches of government individually grouped and together have self-valued roles with and or natures with. And this is where the breaching method propagated, self-cultivated. Fact, treatment, nature, quality aspects in nature that can't be invented, without A, therefore B. Boolean logic. Look how Boolean logic, it's different than the word bully, but look how Boolean logic is tied to bullying being repeated by schools. That's used to measure and maintain. Everyone not realizing the extent of, let alone the existence of, too. They want to debate the existence of it as natures of debate that can't get away with it unless they have fake things stacked in databases. In other words, so all our colleges, all our campuses, our fire campuses, our medical campuses, they have conjunctions that everyone missed. They have legitimate needs and means to hide things, like their roles with the other countries on and off our campuses together. They're pretending passions and emotions because of, for example, the breaching method measured and maintained what James Madison meant, what our founders need to say, but they still didn't have, they were still being measured and maintained. You entertain what the breaching method forces entertained, and you pretend otherwise you're sensed, and you're worse than just hurt. That's why Jim Crow laws, shock and awe, to use a phrase, also repeated by CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News. Also with sequence shifts, and they hid this. They're pretending integrity of FBI when they know. Look at our cities. On off campuses, they've been stacking predicate acts. They've been using little with facts too. They've been spreading lies and rumors, and then asking, and they've been directing people to strangers to make confessions and bring up subjects and names. And then they're asking them questions about that, and they're just attaching them, forcing them to roles, even as kids, to fake things about it. And all that was to hide how the people know each other. That's the only context they know each other in. And these are also private school kids and public school kids with the interbranch and the exceptions tied to them, and the rules with a whole bunch of other countries. And the fire campuses and medical campuses families, lawyers, families, overt criminal enterprises, various natures of federal criminals, and names of it involved with the insidiousness of logic A through Z only allowed her for this. The course of black pupils, whites of eyes is abridged and simultaneously. You know that Hartford, Connecticut was left the way it was and went through those phases, and you guys left out the original breaching method tied to it. The Institute of Living was founded on the campus of Hartford Hospital in 1822, with slavery still entrenched north and south. It's and this has rules. The intelligence role community has roles with mental health experts, and they're pretending to be addiction experts. They're putting fake things in databases, fake uses of drugs and alcohol. Every exception, they try to take pictures and make illusions. They have people spread illusions at the same time. Whole bunch of people with sound view tied to a police chief Centron, and to Yukon and medical community with the military, foreign and domestic, on off Elm Streets in Weathersfield and Rocky Hill, on off Town Line Drive locations, have been planting evidence as me to fake location sequence relationships, fake ties, and fake natures of ties to themselves. There's a Mike Levine, a whole bunch of people tied to him, further involved with the confessions of a principal child offender, further involved with a whole bunch of people with the name Dylan. Note how they've been extending abuses of the kids. They've been refusing me writing while they've been forging and switching names, using the news rolls with it. WFSB has sick rolls with abuses of the kids on and off campuses through time, with various natures of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the Witness Protection Program also has names with all sides in criminal and civil cases. Also involved with predicate acts methods the branch of the government have individually grouped in together, and remote uses of them self-value roles pretending other. That self-value is the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. For example, in our state, sickly distinctly in California and New York City. These are names also connected to the Weathersfield and military and prisons and people, all other exceptions tied to them. Because that's, you put a fake thing in with someone of that branch of government even years ago tied to that, then other people have self-value roles with that. That's what they're doing. They're putting kids to fake locations with each other. Then they take a picture years later. They're forcing quality of fact treatment nature, A, therefore B. They're pretending cooperation with passions and emotions illegitimately. Passions and emotions are about the simultaneous / hyper-simultaneous, or else means to discern. Someone's leaving out the finite or the order of the finite. Someone's leaving out the value of sequence truth, which is only increasing. One of the reasons that the value of Native Americans is only increasingly distinct from our own is because the breaching method is increasingly distinctly having assigned syntactical defenses of and affronts against the Native Americans as collusions, and with all that's actually to shock and awe. This comes through our own certain type of victim slash hyper victim influence to pretend to perceive other things, others, ourselves, and ourselves for the real causes of negative value nature, progressions, acts, and natures. An honest kid can use correlation. Okay, no, the human volume doesn't want slavery. We have all these means now. We have cars and planes. We're still in the breaching trap suburbs, tactically nature that was involved with torture slash slavery, impositions against the Native Americans, then sickly distinctly from now and increasingly, that can't be entertained, and the Constitution unabridged, understood, let alone defended. So we have the knowledge of the sciences individually grouped in together. Collusions with certain type that certain type of victim slash hyper victim pretending other. You have to understand how they get away with this. Per their roles with instances, with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. That has nothing to do with the elements and the subjects involved. So this thing blamed this brought subjects treatments, topic treatments, whatever you want to call it, effectively to measure and maintain uses of those subject treatments, entertainment of those uses of the subject treatments, effectively to measure and maintain the self-value uses of the breaching method, and the names and the fake things in databases, and the acting at locations, take pictures of people to pretend they know each other, have them say things, to paint pictures, to pretend and paint fake motivations. So they've been I caught them recorded forcing child abuses and using the campuses to fake evidences for federal cases. They have their plants with the campuses, certain type of victim slash hyper victim, but they're preventing writing so they could keep that, so they could keep their fake motivations of pretended by the interbranch involved with it, with the foreign at the same time. They had no right to be sitting before cases per how they came through 6 schools. To prevent, they have been using dissents. They've been attaching us to fake ties to their kids and adults. They've been attaching little kids to fake ties to doctors, including ones with badges. The intelligence community should fear God now while getting onto paper. They recorded themselves. You can't trust them. You can't communicate with them. And Weathersfield police have been fabricating fake conversations with myself as a kid with other police agencies, involved with them with these extortion methods, forging, switching names, uses of confessions involved, sickly from the church's uses of confessions, with the same names involved with them, planting evidences on all sides of my house, and with the uses of the sense and sensibilities of those family members. Mike DeMaine is one of the ones with some Mendes police who brought up his roles with others, with people I never even had communications with my neighbor in my neighborhood. And what they heard and what they perceived was also used criminally for an influence. I knew I tried to counter properly their roles with predicate acts leading up to the World Trade Center. Every year since, they've been roles with more predicate acts, Hartford courts and the Britain courts, other courts and their prosecutors and judges and their family members, with the people that run those campuses also next to the campuses. They've been saying and doing things with investigations. Investigators use remotely criminally foreign influence, their homes differentially, their businesses differentially, their family members. This is used where and how they have made mistreatments of every word and phrase, let alone then further they want to deal with the arts, like English arts. They want to deal with phrases like sense and sensibility, words like women, words like, you know, simultaneous, sequence value. They want to debate things, leaving out, they're preventing us free speech from demonstrating the officers forging and switching names and then confessing they only have one officer named that to me and to others. That they also at the same time attach to lies, fake conversations with themselves and others, the news media, about legal cases too. So these are a whole bunch of people tied to a Connecticut district court and to the Hartford courts and to New Britain Superior Court and to people on off the state judicial branch offices, on off the state corrections offices, on off military locations in their homes, and spots next to the campuses that have been planting evidence fabrication roles, and roles with arrays, criminally foreign influence, and with exceptions also differentially used. And self-valued is a word not to be a names calling because that's what they want to. That's one that keeps the. They're pretending it's politics, where they're keeping the sides calling each other names. These are the globalists or this. You know what I mean? Saying because that's how the locations, areas, and states are forcing individuals to pretend integrity as logic, as styles are forced by nature that can't defend themselves and afford that style that nature enables an individual properly. We have to have mandated law followed. So Connecticut news locations recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed their being and having been coached by their roles, criminally foreign influence at the same time with their interbranch sources retired and standing, and roles with names next to them involved. Now they're pretending they want to give up their sources and methods because that's what they're doing when they're playing stupid and pretending passions and emotions. People say things. They've been discrediting what YouTubers say. They've been discrediting even they go, oh well, this they lie about their motivations because they lie about what came first regarding their roles with disputes on the other social media. Facebook has influences through Facebook people, some ways, through the FBI, some other ways. Weathersfield Police, New Britain Superior Court's Facebook page has rape threats, other passion crimes, formally, with their tied to that, which is semi-formal, their Facebook page. Then they made a whole bunch of them after, and they're lying about their motivations because those are names I caught before the World Trade Center attack, who confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed Dean Alford and his family involved with principals from my town and their family members used to attach with a whole bunch of people tied, had conversations with me with the intelligence community, lied about me since I was a kid, put me in fake locations with their kids, fake ties to their kids, fake nature ties to their kids. Some of them have the kids walk next to their, take a picture, there's no thing, so you can't describe it in the past properly. In the future, or in the present, because they're putting fake locations. This is a use of location/s. That's what every modern country's history is about. So get them out of Congress now. That's what they do. That's how you follow mandated law. That's how you care for your country. Stop talking and say sorry real fast. I'll finish your apology for the American people. Yeah, get on paper.